Well, we've just been joined by former chairman, Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities, SANU, Unilag Chapter, Segun Udusonwo. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Yes, this Friday. And of course, we've been talking with Fumi Komolafe, a journalist and activist. Good morning once again.
Good morning again.
For staying with us. All right, so the budget for this year for education is 462.24 billion naira. This 2018 has not been a good year for education, and it looks like it might just be deja vu in coming 2019. With these figures, what do you think?
I just want to say that even though people are saying the budget for education is increased, let them not forget that the expenditure will not be the same as 2018. A lot of people have got promoted. A lot of development is going on campus. So when they say it's increased, it has not. If you do the calculation of the percentage of the amount they allotted to education, it's not up to 6% of the budget. While we are thinking of 15, 20, 26%.
UNICEF recommends at least, we need to underscore that, at least 26% of the budget.
Well, the only time we can say government has performed a little bit better is when they are able to raise this budget for education to maybe about 15, 20%. That is when we can feel the impact. But currently, they are not doing well. Right. And it's going to cause a lot of problems in the coming year in the university system.
Okay, well, for me, I know you've been following these issues as well, but how realistic is it to dedicate 26%? Even though it's a recommendation, if it is something we have followed for the past decades, I know maybe, but from the standpoint where we are right now, where besides education, security needs funds, besides security, health needs funds, besides health, infrastructure needs, there are deficits of every aspect of life as it is right now. How realistic would it be for a country like Nigeria to dedicate 26% to education?
Not just Nigeria. I'm not sure that many African countries have met this UNESCO standard. It's not just Nigeria.
Quite a number have. For countries like Ghana, I mean, it's about
around 35, about 35%. It was the population of Burkina Faso. The whole population of Burkina Faso is not up to Mushin local government. So we must put it in proper context. And I beg to disagree a bit with my friend from the university. Well, from what we have seen now, there's been an increase. We're moving up. This is going to be gradual. But what about the corruption in the university system? Who monitors? Are we saying that when the government makes an allocation for education, everything is meant to pay salaries, everything is meant for projects? What about the little that the university generates? What happens to it? Here in this country now, we have just heard, or in the last few months we've been hearing, how much JAMB has made. JAMB was not created with Ishaq Oloyede. People have been there before Ishaq Oloyede. Where did the money go to? We should begin to ask questions. The university is not made of saints. There is some level of corruption also there. Has there been self-assessment, self-examination? And even the issue of ASU. ASU is not the only union in the education system. SANU is there, NASU is there. The truth of the matter is that nobody earns enough in Nigeria. That is the truth. So I'm not saying that, and they are right to make demands, but in making demands also, only a bad union leader will go to a negotiating table and tell his comrades that, look, I'm going for 100%, I must come with 100% or nothing. That's a bad union leader.
Segun, these are legitimate
the truth of the matter is
issues she just raised.
Compromise along the way. You must lose something to gain something.
Okay.
You must shift
grounds.
Let
us address the corruption in the universities. Who monitors, who awards the contracts, who executes these projects?
As per who monitors, I am very sure as a union leader, that the unions on campus are closely monitoring what is happening with the funds that is released to the universities. Like in my own university, whenever a fund is sent, there is a committee consisting of the university management, all the unions on campus, the people from that monitors how that fund are dispensed. And if you recollect, UNAB, FUNAB, AFUTA, we are crisis because the union monitors them, and most of them have been facing EFCC. That is to tell you that the unions on campus are not just there sleeping. We monitor how the money is dispersed.
So in that case, are you satisfied by the way the monies are disbursed? Because the point there is, if you look at, even though they say there's no tuition at all, if you calculate how much each student pays in, for instance, that goes into the coffers of the university, one would say, well, it should be enough to handle one or two things. But you don't see that commensurate transformation within the system differently from what is on ground.
No, I just want people to understand that even this 462 they say they are allocating, this is on paper. The majority of this amount doesn't come to the university system. By the time you go, when they pay salary, there is always a shortfall. It is this internally generated fund that we are talking about that university used to
cushion or close
the gap.
Yeah, okay. But we expect that when that shortfall is, you should raise alarm. Because the point there is, the assumption is that the money is released to you, and when you're going to be scrutinized, you'll be scrutinized based on that, especially in the public or in the eye of the public opinion. So if the allocations doesn't meet up the actual what is budgeted, we expect that alarm will be raised.
That is it.
Well, but Ms. Komolafe, you seem to be turning the tables around on ASU, SANU, and the rest of them, taking away from what they have been crying about, that government just has not shown enough commitment to education, especially when against the backdrop of government saying that we recognize the need for human capital development and to pull the country out of poverty and all of these other policies, that government comes up with every year. If you don't fix education, how realistic is it that you can fix, these other sectors?
No, I agree with you. I agree absolutely that government hasn't done enough. That it hasn't met the UNESCO recommendation is the first signal that we are not doing enough. But even with the little we have, and I agree with him to a point, and that's not only for ASU or, for the universities or education sector. A budget is an estimate. If you ask permanent secretaries in the ministry, they will tell you that we are waiting for cash backing. And a good number of times, the cash backing you get is not 100% of the budget. And that has to do with perhaps the income or management of the resources. That could be from the Ministry of Finance, depending on how they manage it. But what we're saying, yes, if you do monitor, do you cry out at the right time? Because if you monitor, you know it's not adequate, and you keep quiet, then nothing happens now. Then again, I have covered ASU as a labor reporter for years. And there was a time that ASU was ASU. Today's ASU is not the same ASUs of the Olufade Ibis, of Unilag, of the J-Force, of the Dikpo Fashion. Though I know many of their presidents, Festus Yayi, many of them.
So what has gone wrong?
It's not the same ASU. Let's ask. ASU needs also to do its own in-house cleaning. In the universities today, many of them, if you don't buy a lecturer's textbook, you are not likely to have a pass mark.
I think that started a long time ago. When
But
we
it's
were
not
in
right.
school,
It's
we
not
had to buy
right.
handouts.
Handouts and
That's
books.
it.
Yes.
Is it
and
right?
you actually were given a mark for buying the handout.
not
So the
right.
rot has always been there
That
in
is
the system. How do you defend?
Physician heals thyself.
Exactly.
How do you-
Shegun, what do you have to say about this?
It was there in those days,
It's still there.
especially in Unilag. But nowadays, lecturers are penalized if you ask any student to come and buy your handout. You know, there is something going on in there. There is a form that students fill about the habit or behavior of the lecturers. If you force any student to do, by the time they fill that in and pass to the management, the lecturer will be sanctioned. A lot of in-house cleaning is going on within the campus, because I cannot say Madam is not saying the right thing, but right now everybody knows that it's not right, and especially in University of Lagos where I work, I know
Yeah,
a lot
but
of
when
things
we're
going
talking
on
about the university system, Unilag is just one. Even if that is happening in Unilag, as in like the house cleaning you're talking about,
it happening in
it's
other
just it's
schools?
just one university out of hundreds of universities within the country. Especially when you have the federal universities, you have state universities, and even there are polytechnics, and they're all tertiary institutions, and these things happen. Now, when it comes to the issue of revenue generation, a lot of people have agreed that certainly ASU and SANU and the university system is a collection of intellectuals. So when it comes to the creativity, they should have what it takes. But they are not deploying that creativity into raising funds enough to be independent. And everyone still goes back to government and goes back to government and goes back to government. What do you say?
I just want to say that even when you are ready, send your proposal, feasibility studies to government, you want to do to raise funds. Government at times they are not ready to support either the lecturers or any researchers that are ready to, because nobody is there to fund the research or the proposal sent to the government. So that is part of the problem we are having.
Yeah, but can there be an alternative source of revenue where the university decides to look for other means of funding its some of its activities and projects and research and all of that besides going back to government?
You know, it becomes a crime if you just go behind, especially this our single treasury account now, that you want to go and borrow money.
No, we're not talking of borrowing.
No, source. How do
No,
they
looking
No,
for
we're not-
alternative
sources of revenue. That's what we're saying.
If I may
so that you
come
can actually plow it back to things like research, you know, equipping the laboratories and all of that. Those are the things that you've been asking for. And government, come to think of it, Fumi, government has said, look, there's a need for an education bond, which ASU has said a complete no to. You know, government has said, look, we don't even have the funds to actually, you know, provide the kind of monies that ASU
So let's
is.
raise a bond.
Let's, you
And
know.
what's wrong with that?
But the ASU is saying
But-
everything is wrong with that.
I was even going to say that universities have ventures. Sir, Unilag had or still has, you need to tell me, university guest house is there, which has nothing to do with treasury account. That's your own internally generated revenue. And you know that between ASU and SANU, there are issues. All these things you are raising, SANU members don't usually tag along with ASU. In fact, the moment the government grants ASU something, SANU will wake up.
will say-
NASU will wake up. And Saturai.
And that is why SANU has
There's
now
also
embarked
Saturai,
on its strike,
the
9 days
research
strike
institution.
now.
Now, talking about research, there are so many international organizations that give opportunities for lecturers to do research. I know this, and I'm sure you know it. You know it. So many international NGOs outside this country. Not everybody can have it. But if you raise your profile to that level, you will get it.
But should the university system rely solely on this? No,
that doesn't mean that the government should shirk
grants.
its responsibilities. That's not what we're saying. But in a situation where you can't get it from your regular source,
look for
then you
creative
have
ways.
to use your creative mind to get to. Look at Afeba Balola University. This is a private university.
Yes.
Even Kele, they have ventures. Afebabalala University has a big poultry whatever for his agric students. I do know that Caleb University has a bakery. They have what? All these things they use to generate
generating revenue.
Unilag, what happened? I don't know how viable your radio station is, but at least I know that Unilag guest house, and I know that they used to generate income.
And they have
I don't know whether it's been run down.
Table water at a time,
exactly,
you know, and all of that. And even besides that, we also know that there are some kind of partnership between universities in the developed world and so on. You need to partner in research. Sometimes you don't need to pay anything. Sometimes they don't necessarily need to give you monies outrightly, but they make an arrangement where your lecturers can come over to, you know, to
exchange programs.
Exchange programs and so on. Those are the things we're talking about.
Okay, so putting all of this together, how do we make progress as far as education is concerned in Nigeria that we can bring back glory days? That is the crux of the matter, isn't it?
I think the way forward is to stop politicizing education. It's just like you have 2 children and you are not even able to feed them properly. No additional source of income, and you went ahead and married another 2 wives, producing more children when you cannot. That is what is happening. Federal government want to cite university in every local government everywhere when you cannot even
and let's talk about more licenses
the one
being
on
issued.
ground, you cannot adequately
cater
for them. That is the problem we are having. They continue to create universities, polytechnics, college of education, instead of enlarging the ones they have. They enlarge and equip the existing one. That will reduce the cost they're supposed to spend on education if government can do that. But because they want to politicize, I have done this here, I have done that here.
Fumi, do you agree with that?
Well, to an extent, I agree with him, but everything is politics. And the people who allocate the money are they not politicians? So whether we like it or not, there's politics in everything, even in our homes, you know. But I agree that government needs to show more commitment, and I think that all the stakeholders need to be sincere. You cannot, and this includes the trade unions in the universities, and SANU, ASUS, NASU, all. There has to be sincerity. People have to, you know, be on their guard. Don't cover up. Watch, monitor how the little that you have is spent. You just talked about a man who has 2 children, who couldn't feed them well, and went to marry. That happens in this society. That is the truth.
It happens, so but should that be happening? Should it be actually?
I like to make disposition to all of this. These things happen.
It happens. It doesn't make it right.
Because as far as your mind is, if you are in love with someone, why not?
That's another matter. Because are they marrying for love or for something else?
And then the other spouse and the women
exactly
to take care of
you know.
So let's leave that aside. But the truth of the matter is that we need to pay more attention to education. When I heard that, I think the parliamentarians said something about more universities to be, I said, what nonsense? What nonsense? The ones you have, you need to beef them up, give them quality, you know, beef them up to quality standards. But more importantly, we're dishing out all these learned people. Where are the jobs? Where are the jobs for them to? So I agree.
Isn't that why the curriculum of the universities really needs to be reformed in such a way that it is
people are not graduating to look for work.
Exactly.
A lot of the private universities are doing that. I don't know of federal government universities, but I know that a lot of the private universities are doing that.
There are also complaints for me of the fact that many graduates from the private universities who come out even with first class sometimes and second class can't defend whatever they come out with.
Then that is a problem with the lecturers. Don't forget that 70% of the lecturers in the private universities come from federal institutions. Those who go to teach lecture in other universities, they come from federal government institutions. So most of the time these lecturers have more than a job. They do. They have more than a job.
I can see Shegun
is agreeing to that.
Agreeing to that.
That's correct. Yes. That's correct.
Okay. Well, the point is, in Rwanda, for instance, private schools are closing down because public schools have been equipped. They're doing well. They're raised to standard. So from the primary level to tertiary level, private schools are shutting down. And we want to look for, although in Nigeria, we cannot say that there shouldn't be private institutions. But the point there is we're talking of how responsible government is towards its own institutions.
And in addition to that, research already shows, or reports show that, you know, the more private universities and private tertiary institutions that we have, the lower the quality. When the tertiary institutions used to be in the hands solely of the federal government, the Nigerian universities were actually one of the best 1,000 in the world. And just like I asked earlier, how do we restore the glory of our tertiary institutions?
I think for that to happen in Nigeria, we need to be sincere, everybody. Because
back to what Fumi was saying.
Most people in government, they are killing the public universities or public education sector so that they can have their own institution. That is what is happening. Insincerity.
Okay. All right, we have to leave it here now. Segun Odusonwo, a former chairman, Sanu University of Lagos. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
And Fumi Kumolafe, journalist and an activist. Thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for giving us a different perspective, reality check for the investors.